Hi guys, and welcome to my video of me completely ripping apart my Switch and putting a brand new shell on it. So in this video, I kind of wanted to show the process that I took with putting this Animal Crossing print slash shell on my Nintendo Switch. There's 1,000 videos out there showing the technical side and the how-to part of it, but I thought that it is a pretty fun sped up video to watch. Honestly, I'm not really gonna be providing insight. I would suggest watching I can't say it. I would suggest watching Jerry Riggs I can't say it for the love of God. I would suggest watching Jerry Riggs Everything's video. He has a very good technical video. I used his video and I used a video from IGN, and then I used this hour-long video just because Jerry Riggs Everything's video was kind of really concise and edited kind of in a way that when you're done with one step, it instantly cuts to the next. There's really no in between. So I also kind of needed a more zoomed out view. Anyway, so all the videos I used to help me put this thing together are in the description box below. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the tools that I used to open this baby up. So I originally had bought this Nintendo toolkit from Amazon, and it turns out that the only useful thing in that entire toolkit was the little pick that pries stuff open and the tri-wing screwdriver. The Phillips head that comes in this toolkit actually stripped multiple screws that I had, and I'll get a little bit into that later. There were some bumps and bruises in the road, and I may or may not have had to ask my dad twice to come and help me open screws up because the screwdriver was not the correct size for any of the screws. So I would not recommend this toolkit. However, I will leave it in the description box below just so you know what toolkit to not buy on Amazon. The next thing, obviously, is going to be a shell for the Joy-Con and the console itself. This one, I know, okay, I'm about to say this. This one I purchased off of AliExpress. And if you don't know what AliExpress is, basically, it's a wholesale market that's based in China. A lot of people know it because they sell some not so good products. What this set comes with is the Joy-Con shells, the console shell, some replacement screws if you choose to not keep the black ones that come with the black Nintendo Switch, and some colorful buttons if you want to replace the buttons as well. I would say that if there was a star in this whole process out of the multiple, I probably had to use about 15 different screwdrivers for this, and I know that sounds crazy. How could a Nintendo Switch have 15 different types of screws? I mean, I'll get into that a little bit later when that comes up in the video, but the star of this whole process was by far the casing shell for my Nintendo Switch. This thing was, the person who manufactured this casing must have been looking at a Nintendo Switch inside already, like the official Nintendo ones that come with the Switch already, because even down to the little tiny tabs on the inside were exactly where they should be. They were the exact thickness, they were the exact width. Everything about this casing was absolutely perfect, and the logos and little designs on the casing shell, I'm sure as you can tell, are very clear and really good quality. So with that said, let's jump right into getting this baby open and putting on the brand new shell. So this video was actually shot over the course of 3 days. So in my first session, I'm sure you'll be able to tell where one day stops and the next day starts. Basically what happened was I realized that the Phillips head in this toolkit does not fit any screws on this Nintendo Joy-Con. So what I had to do was ask my dad if he had any, but I was filming this at about 12 o'clock at night, so obviously he was asleep. He had to go to work the next day, so I wasn't able to ask him if he had the correct size screw for Phillips head, and I basically gave up on trying to open up the Joy-Con. Pretty smart of me. I will get into a situation later in this video where I didn't do that, and I stripped the living hell out of one of the screws, which was bad on my part, but I was really anxious at that point to just get it all done and over with. So I thought, why not talk a little bit about Animal Crossing, considering we're literally putting an Animal Crossing shell on the Joy-Cons as we speak, and the console of course, but that's the very last step that I took. I have been playing Animal Crossing since City Folk. I think my mom must have bought it for me one Christmas or something like that. I don't actually remember, because I remember we got a Wii for one Christmas, but then we didn't get Animal Crossing right as we got the Wii. I don't think. I was probably about 8 at the time, so I can't quite recall on that time period, but that's where I started. And then I never played consistently, obviously what 9-year-old plays Animal Crossing consistently. Like, I think I would be gone for like 6 months and then I just started a new town. So I never really had a solidified concrete town in City Folk. However, when New Leaf came out, I think that game came out in 2013, 2012, something. Maybe, wait, it might have been later than that. Anyway, so if it was 2013, then I was 12 years old. So I was still pretty young when New Leaf came out. However, I was really, really determined to get New Leaf. Also, don't mind this pillow that I decided to put down. I put it down so that the joysticks weren't pressed right up against my desk. I don't know, I was like scared of them breaking or something. But I didn't have a 3DS. So basically, I made a deal with my mom and I said, Mom, if I get good grades this year at school, can you get me a Nintendo 3DS? And I got my 3DS that way. I remember really vividly, I didn't have the $40 to buy New Leaf, or however much it was at the time. I think it was $40. I didn't have that money, so I remember I was going to New York City with my grandma the next day to visit my aunt down there. I was begging my mom to buy me the game and she ended up getting it for me. I don't know how, because when I used to beg for stuff she would never get it for me, but I think she remembered how much I loved Animal Crossing in the first place and decided to get me the game. So I remember setting up my town on the long train ride down to New York City. I say down because like I live up from New York City, so like we have to take the train all the way down. And yeah, for that whole 5-hour train ride, I was just setting up my town, getting things situated. And to this very day, well, it's 2019, so that must have been 6 years ago. If it was in 2013, I honestly can't remember when New Leaf came out, but 6 years later, sorry, I still have the same exact town and I still play on it pretty regularly. I have done basically everything I can do, which is why I'm really, really excited for New Horizons, because it's just like so exciting, the prospect of creating a brand new town, meeting brand new villagers, and obviously the game is going to be completely different than what New Leaf was because you're starting your own island up. So I'm incredibly excited, and I really hope that the game is as good as like I'm picturing it in my mind. So this part in the video, I was actually getting super frustrated because I couldn't even get the first screws that you have to take out from the inside of the Joy-Con. I wasn't even able to get those out. So I was getting super pissed off. I was like, if this is how this process is gonna start, how am I gonna get all the way to the end? So at one point or another, I decided to just give it a go the next day, which was kind of sad because I had work the next day and I knew I was gonna be super tired after I came home from work and I was not gonna really want to do it, but I decided to just pull through and just wait till the next day. I'm just watching this video and dying because I was suffering so much with getting those tiny little inside screws on the board that holds the battery out. Like, it was such a struggle. The screwdriver is really bad. This Phillips head one that I'm using from that kit, it doesn't even fit any of the screws that are on the Nintendo Switch. So I don't really understand why the seller sold it as like a Nintendo Switch repair toolkit, because that Phillips head, which there's more Phillips head screws in the Joy-Con replacement process than there is the Tri-Wing screws, which are like Nintendo's signature screws, I think, or something like that. The Tri-Wing screwdriver worked perfectly fine, but the Phillips head one was awful and I couldn't use it to take out any of the screws in this whole entire process. So this is the part in the video where the footage actually rolls over into day 2. As you can see, the setup is a little bit different here. I have significantly more screwdrivers. You can kind of see those off in the distance in the video, like they're farther away from the camera. I have a blue flashlight, as you can see. I had that because I was dropping my screws in the board and like I wasn't able to find them. Obviously I found all of them in the end, but I couldn't see where they were and the lighting in my room is kind of bad. I have this green towel instead of that makeshift pillow. I kind of have the camera at a better angle, so day 2 all around was pretty good. Day 2, obviously, as I mentioned before in the beginning of the video, was the longest time that I spent. So when I'm recording this, it's actually the night of Christmas and I have to work tomorrow, which makes me so sad. I'm a barista, if you were wondering, which I'm sure none of you were. But for Christmas, I actually received Pokemon Shield. And funny story, totally unrelated to what I'm doing currently working on this Nintendo Switch, but I also received Luigi's Mansion 3. Well, I mean, I kind of received Luigi's Mansion 3. So essentially what happened is my mom was trying to hide her Amazon purchases from me for Christmas, obviously because it was a gift. And so me, my mom, and my sister all share one Amazon account and we just use Prime together. So my mom made her own Amazon account so that she would be able to hide our presents from us. So she ordered Luigi's Mansion and it was actually from a third-party seller, so it didn't have Prime on it, right? Well, Christmas rolls around and I end up opening up Luigi's Mansion, so excited to play, about to lay in my bed for 5 hours and play the living hell out of this game. So I rip open the plastic wrapping and lo and behold, I open up the Luigi's Mansion game box and there's no Luigi's Mansion in it. There's no game cartridge, there's nothing. There's nothing on the inside, no game at all. And then today I contacted Amazon support and they ended up refunding my mom her money. And I just decided I'm gonna use my employee discount at Target and I'm gonna just buy it there because that was a waste of time and money and I cannot believe that they did that. Funny part about that story was, I mean, not so much funny, but like WTF moment was I looked on the seller's profile just to see their reviews and stuff like that. I actually left them a pretty angry review, but I was looking through their reviews and another person on the same exact day, so December 25th, another person said the exact same thing. There was no game in the game box, no game cartridge at all. So that means that they've been scamming 2 people now, and who knows how many others that they've been scamming, but it's pretty crazy, isn't it? So at this point in the video, I have finally taken apart my first Joy-Con. I got those screws out that I was having trouble with on day 1. I actually had to have my dad give me a bunch of screwdrivers. As I mentioned before, you can kind of see the dozen of them that I have kind of going off camera because there's so many of them. I think at this part of the process, I was actually feeling really confident and happy. I was like, this is so much easier now that I have more screwdrivers to pick from and to use. Little did I know, this was nothing compared to what I had to deal with coming up when I actually took apart the back of the console, which I'm sure you'll see, and I'll tell you about it when we get to that point. Oh my god, I remember doing this part. So you have to take apart the trigger for the controller, the Joy-Con, obviously, because you need a trigger to play most games. And so there's this little button and this little spring that the trigger will sit on, because when you click down your trigger, then it bounces back up, and that mechanism is created by a spring that's in there. Now putting that spring back in the new Joy-Con shell, oh, it's such a headache. It's such a headache to do. By the way, if I were to leave in the footage the full length of time that this specific button took, I think it would be going on 5 minutes. So I'm gonna cut out me trying to put this trigger button in because I want to move on and not have the video be 30 minutes of sped up footage. Oh my god, and would you look at that, with the power of editing, we are probably 45 minutes ahead of where we were last time. Actually 45 minutes. Isn't that crazy? It took me 45 minutes to put that trigger button in. Oh, it was such a process. Now where we are is I am taking the joystick out, I am taking the motherboard out, and I am taking the Rumble Pack out and transferring it to my brand new Animal Crossing shell, which is beautiful. I have it, I'm looking at it right as I'm making this voiceover. I love her. I love her a lot. I'm sure, as you can already hear by the background music, I am a big connoisseur of The Sims, and I would say Animal Crossing kind of falls under the simulation genre of game, but I mean like Sims. Like, I played Sims 3. I started off playing Sims 3, and then when Sims 4 came out, I pre-ordered that, and I've kept up with it since every expansion pack has come out. I don't follow Sims as closely as I did back in the day. Like, I think I used Sims 3 more as an escape to get out of reality, and especially because I was in middle school at the time that The Sims 3 came out, and my life was kind of miserable because everyone's an asshole in middle school and nobody likes each other and nobody's nice to one another. So I'd come home from middle school and I'd play Sims 3 for hours and hours on end, and it was a time in my life where I kind of really invested myself into video games. I would say even more than now. I was super invested. I used The Sims as a crutch to escape reality, and I really adore it to this day because of how much it did for me back in middle school. Okay, so this is a really exciting point in the video because I have just switched over the buttons for my old Joy-Con and I'm putting in the new buttons. I'm putting colored buttons in because I think that they look really cute with the Animal Crossing print. I actually posted a photo of my Switch with the new shell on it a few days ago on the Animal Crossing Switch, or no, not the Animal, well, I did post it on the Animal Crossing Reddit, but I also posted it on the Nintendo Switch Reddit, and somebody said it looked like a Pop-Tart. They said it looked like a Pop-Tart and that they wanted to eat it. I'm actually going back to school, back to college in a few days, and I don't know how I'm gonna transfer all of my Nintendo Switch stuff. So I live up near Canada, in New York State, but my college is down in New York City, which, if you're not familiar with like how New York State is laid out, I would say from where I live, if you were to drive down to New York City, it'd be about 5 or 6 hours. Instead, because my mom has really bad back and neck problems, she is unable to drive that distance because it really takes a toll on her neck. So I instead fly, right? The problem with flying is that I flew back up here in New York State maybe like a month ago, before Christmas break kicked in. It was kind of a process because my college is about 15 minutes outside New York City, so I have to take a train into New York City, and then I have to take a bus. I have to get off the train in Harlem, and then I have to get on the bus in Harlem, and then I have to take that bus all the way over to Brooklyn. And if you're not familiar with how New York City is laid out, normally that would be if there was no traffic, if there was not a car on the street, that distance would take about 15 minutes to drive. New York City is not wide. Like, I would say from the bottom of Manhattan, down near like the World Trade Center, from where I am in college, that is probably a 30-minute drive. Like, that is absolutely nothing. But as we know, it's a city, so the traffic is intense. If there was not a car on the street in New York City, it would not take so long to get around everywhere. The reason why it takes forever to get around is because of the traffic, and I'm sure that's the same for many other cities. I think LA is kind of the exception to that because LA is kind of spread out from what I know. I've never been there, but this is a bad way to gauge my knowledge about LA, but from vlogs that I've seen in LA, it's not like you have to take a car to get everywhere, you know what I mean? Or an Uber, or I think San Francisco is the only place with like public transportation. No, that's not true. I don't know. The only thing I know about San Francisco is from Full House, so anyways, so back onto what I was talking about earlier. It's gonna be pretty hard for me to transport my Switch. Basically, I plan on taking my Switch dock with me. I plan on taking my Elgato game capture with me because I want to record some footage when Animal Crossing New Horizons comes out. Obviously, that's why I'm doing all this, dude. I think I'm gonna bring a bigger backpack back because I brought a really small, those Fjallraven bags. I brought one of those backpacks. And don't get me wrong, I love those bags for class because they're really small, they're really lightweight, they can hold a lot. I know what I'm saying here is that they can't hold a lot, but that's like for traveling. But for class, it's like a perfect size, it's a perfect weight, it's stylish, it fits well on my shoulders. But in a traveling situation, it really is not a good backpack to have because it's just enough to carry some folders and like a binder and maybe my laptop. But when you factor in having to put all my electronics, because when you carry on a bag, you have to put all your electronics in a bin through TSA, right? So I have to put my Nintendo Switch in this tiny bag. I have to put my laptop in this tiny bag. I have to put my phone in this tiny bag. So there's just a lot of things that have to go in this tiny bag that will not fit because there's just too much of it. I'm definitely gonna bring a bigger backpack this time around because I actually want to be able to carry some things on instead of putting it all in my checked luggage. Which is another problem is I know all my clothes and my books because I like to read a lot, so I'll probably bring about 6 or 7 books back to school with me because I'll probably read all of them by the time spring break comes. But it's just such a process. Like, my bag was 10 pounds overweight last time, and if you have an overweight bag, they charge you an extra $30. So the lady was so nice, the airline lady. I flew with Delta, and she was like helping me put some things in other bags, and she gave me a whole separate bag because you can have 2 carry-ons with you. So she was putting some things in the other carry-on bag. She gave me a clear plastic bag so that I could carry that on. She was so sweet. We kind of like kikied for a second. We had like a little conversation. She's like, oh yeah, I love working nights because I can get my kids on the bus in the morning, or she can drive them to school or whatever she said. I was like, oh my god. So yeah, we kind of had a little conversation. She was the nicest lady ever, and I eventually got my bag down to below 50 pounds. I think 50 pounds is the weight limit. So I was carrying around a 65-pound bag in New York City. It was around 65 pounds. I know it was 10 pounds overweight, but it was like 64 pounds. So that was 14 pounds overweight. It's pretty crazy. I had to carry that thing from my school onto my school's shuttle bus, then to the train station to get into New York City, and then I had to get off the train, lug that bag to the bus stop, get on the bus, ride with that bag clutched to my body for like an hour and a half. And finally we were at the airport, and I still had to go through TSA. I still had to check that actual bag, but honestly, once I get at the airport, I kind of calm down and I kind of relax. I don't know why I'm telling you guys this, but I feel like we're friends, so I feel like you should know all this stuff. So at this point in the video, I have finally finished the inside of one of the Joy-Cons, and I don't know, I think it's the left one. I'm trying to look at like my actual Nintendo Switch over there, but I can't really see it. I mean, I can like see it, but I can't see the back of it, so I can't see which one we're currently working on in the video, but one of them's done, so yeah, that's nice. At this point in the video, I am just testing out the Nintendo Switch, using all the buttons, making sure the triggers work, making sure that the controller is charging right, because I'm sure we'll see it when I do this next controller. The charging wasn't working, and I'll explain to you once we get to that step, because I was kind of freaking out on the inside. And on the outside probably. So doing the second Joy-Con controller, I think, is actually the shortest clip I have of this. And I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory why that is. It's because I basically did it in the first controller, and I'm now repeating that in the second controller, except the second controller, obviously I fixed all the problems that I've had. For example, not having the right size screwdrivers, I fixed that problem by having a bunch on my desk. You can still kind of see them. I knew what to do. It was pretty streamlined, pretty simple. I just, swapped out the shell. So the second controller, out of taking apart the console and putting the shell on the actual console, and then the second controller was the easiest part to switch out because I had already done it in the first one, and all of the errors I made were corrected. I mean, I say all the errors I made were corrected. I actually had a new problem with the second controller, so I'm sure you're gonna see it at some point. I think I might have stopped recording because I was like, are you kidding me? Did I really just do that right now? But I had a false alarm with the second controller. So I'm gonna preface with what I'm about to say, saying that before I even bought the Nintendo Switch shell, I was like, I'm gonna buy a replacement pair of Joy-Cons just in case. I was gonna buy them used, just in case I had destroyed my ones somehow, some way. Mind you, I had never opened up a Nintendo Switch or a Nintendo Switch Joy-Con before. In my head, I was thinking, if I destroy one part of this Nintendo Switch Joy-Con, I'm gonna be screwed. But now I don't think that. Now I know that I can replace certain parts in the Joy-Con and the Nintendo Switch itself, and it will be completely fine. But back before I started this project, I was like, if I destroy one part of this Joy-Con, I'm not going to be able to replace it. So I was trying to get some used ones on eBay. They were still working, they were still intact, but that eBay listing actually ended up being like $3 less than what brand new Joy-Cons costed. And so I was like, I'm not gonna buy used Joy-Cons for $3 less than what new ones would cost. And I think that ideology kind of made it so I was really, really delicate, you know? So I feel like it's a subliminal thing, but if you know you have a replacement for whatever you're working on, you kind of are more abrasive with it, you're kind of more rough with it. So I went really slow with these Joy-Cons because I knew I didn't have a replacement. I went step by step, making sure I took out everything really delicately, making sure I didn't tug too hard at any of the ribbons or anything like that. And I seriously think that had I had those replacement backup ones, I would not have been as careful as I was with my own set of Joy-Cons. So anyways, the false alarm that I had with this Joy-Con was once I took the whole thing apart, transferred it into the new shell, sealed up the new shell with screws and put the battery back in and everything like that, I decided, okay, I'm gonna test it. I'm gonna test this Joy-Con out and we're gonna see if it works. Well, I was told from the beginning, from the second I started doing this, you have to be really careful with the charging rails. And I actually watched a whole different YouTuber, not Jerry Rigs Everything, that did this clear customization on his Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons, and one of his Joy-Cons was not charging at all. So I was super worried that I would tug too hard without knowing on the charging rail and I would break the charging mechanism inside the Joy-Con. And I thought I had, because when I turned on my Nintendo Switch to test this right Nintendo Switch Joy-Con, it was reading as the battery being in the red. So I was like, fuck, I messed up the charging rail. And these charging rails, I mean, you can get replacements for them, but you can only buy them in a 2-pack. You can't buy them in a 1-pack. From what I've seen on Amazon, you can only buy them in a 2-pack. And obviously, if you mess up one charging rail, you're not going to need 2 charging rails. So anyways, I was super careful, or I thought I had been, because I thought the charging rail was the problem, right? So I opened the thing back up, and I was like, okay, maybe it's the battery. Maybe I didn't plug the battery in all the way or something like that. So I unplugged the battery. Mind you, it was plugged in. I re-plug in the battery and I hear that little click. And I thought I had heard the click in the first place, but spoiler alert, I didn't hear the click because I plugged that battery back in, I sealed the thing back up, and boom, would you guess, it was the battery not being plugged in all the way. I was so happy that it was not the charging rail that I destroyed, because I went out of my way with caution to make sure that I did not tug too hard on the charging rails, screw them in roughly, abrasively, whatever, and I guess it was just the battery. So that's a long story, but yeah. So another problem that I had while I was putting this thing together was that the home button was falling in the controller. So what I mean by that is I would go to push the button down and I had like the board, I had the motherboard on it, I had the buttons all put in, I had my joystick all put in, all this stuff was put in the Joy-Con controller, it was all put back together, and the button, I would go to press it and like it would fall into the controller. So what ended up happening was the motherboard of the Joy-Con wasn't pushed down all the way, and as a result the button wasn't being held in by anything, it was just like sitting there freely. So I took the whole thing apart again for the second time, and I fixed the button falling in problem. I think that the other buttons were doing it as well, like not just the home button. So if you end up having that problem, make sure that your motherboard of your controller is pushed down all the way. I don't know why, but the right one is definitely a lot more difficult to put together than the left one is. And you know, you could say it's because it has that Amiibo reader in it. You know, the right Joy-Con has Amiibo reader in it, so you could say it's because of that, but honestly I don't know what it is. I think it's like a combination of the home button kind of being there. I don't know, but yeah, this right controller was a pain in the ass, more so than the left one, which is kind of interesting that they're different in terms of putting them back together. I wouldn't say any of them are inherently hard to put together, but it was definitely better to do the left controller and then the right one because I had the experience and the errors and the trial and error, from the left one, and I could bring that into the right one. So I'm glad I did it that way. I think that's how the tutorial on Jerry Rigs Everything's video, I think that's also how he did it. But I feel like if I had done the right one first, I would have really effed some stuff up because, man, that was not a good experience any way around. Like, I had to separate that in 2 days. That was not a fun controller to do. So I think this begs the question, why are you doing this? Why are you going through all this pain and effort and 3 days of hard labor? Just kidding, this is not hard labor. This is like a breeze compared to what some people have to do for their jobs. But voluntarily, you know? Why am I doing this in my free time? Why am I doing this as like, not a hobby, but you know what I mean? Like, why not just lay on the couch instead of putting this in together when I could be doing recreational things? And I say to that, I don't know, it feels good to like have something customized that means so much to you. Do you know what I mean? So I use my desktop computer every day, at least when I'm home during winter break and summer break. Obviously when I'm at school it's a different story, but my desktop computer, I wouldn't say it's customized, but I have my mouse and keyboard is like, they're both Razer products, and I kind of like coordinate the chroma on the Razer products, and then my desktop, my wallpaper on my desktop, everything's customized to like be in the same theming. And this may be someone, you know, may not mean a lot or nobody cares. Like, you're not using the computer to like look at how pretty it looks. Do you know what I mean? And I guess that same ideology could also be said for the Switch, because you're not playing the Switch to like look at the shell on it. You know what I mean? But there's just something in me that really appreciates when something is like customized, and it makes me feel good. And also I love taking things apart and putting them back together. I think it's a really fun experience. I also think that I learned a lot about how a inside of a Nintendo Switch looks and how it functions. And I think I mentioned this earlier, but I know the parts inside of a Joy-Con now. Like, say my button falls in on itself, I can take it apart and I know how to like fix that, whereas before I would have been like shaking in my boots because I don't know like where a button is. I don't know how to take apart a Joy-Con. So I really learned a lot from this process, not just getting a new pretty Nintendo, not new, you know, not new, I mean like a new shell, but it wasn't just getting the new shell. It was like learning about how electronics work and what they look like on the inside in the process. So that was really, I liked that aspect of it a lot. But another reason that I want to get this new customization is because I plan on going into New York City when the launch party comes out. I live really close, so it's not like a day trip or anything. It's like I get on a train and I go into the city. My college is really close to New York City, so we have like a little train station in the town where my college is, and I just get on that and then go into New York City straight from there. So I plan on going to a launch party, and I really want to set up my town in store or like on the train back from the store. I also plan on vlogging the launch party at Nintendo World in New York City. Obviously that's where I'm talking about it. Did I say New York City? I think I said New York City, didn't I? You probably assumed because I've already talked about New York City in this video, but I'm super excited. Like, I don't know if you guys, you probably, if you're watching this video, you understand my excitement. Animal Crossing has such an impact in my life. When I was in high school, every single summer I spent at least 3 or 4 hours on the game. Like, is there a way you can check game time, how much time you put into a game on the Switch, or not the Switch, and the Nintendo 3DS? Because I would really like to see how many hours. I mean, I can't even compute or quantify the amount of time that I've put into Animal Crossing. It just feels so real to me. Like, when I don't have people in my life, Animal Crossing is like those types of people. Yeah, they're all my friends. Besides the villagers that are kind of nasty, the ones that are nasty boys, we don't want them in our towns. So I try to get rid of the nasty villagers. But like people like Goldie and Fauna. Oh my god, I have a Fauna plushie sitting on my dorm room desk. Like, oh, I love her so much. She's so cute. I had class in New York City one day, and so I go into the city and I had like an hour time free. So I went to Nintendo World New York City. And I explicitly went up to that second floor, headed straight back into the Pokemon station, because you know what kind of sucks actually, is the Animal Crossing stuff is sectioned off to one corner in the Pokemon second floor. Like, the whole second floor of Nintendo World New York City is Pokemon and Legend of Zelda, and like there's like a case with every single amiibo in it. But Animal Crossing has like a tiny little stand in the Pokemon section. Like, why doesn't Animal Crossing have more stuff? It's weird to me too, because I've seen vlogs of people going into the Japanese Nintendo store, and there is like a whole corner, or at least not, I don't know. I've talked to a lot of people that aren't native to New York City, and they talked about how they went explicitly just Nintendo World just to see like Animal Crossing stuff and like get some merch and stuff like that, and they were really disappointed with the display that they had for Animal Crossing. And it is kind of disappointing. I would say they have more stuff for Kirby than they do as Animal Crossing as a whole. It's very strange to me that it's sectioned off to a tiny little stand in Pokemon's area of Nintendo World New York City. It's just so weird. Like, why don't they have more? Why is it a tiny little stand? I don't get it. Okay, that rant is over, I promise. But I actually ranted my way through that second Joy-Con controller. I mean, kind of all the way through, because I started ranting halfway through putting it together. But anyways, so we are done with the second Joy-Con controller, and that means we are on to the third day in the video, meaning that we are putting the backing on the Nintendo Switch now. So you would think that I would do the most streamlined thing last. I mean, the Nintendo Switch is a really easy console to take the shell off of the actual console unit itself. The Joy-Cons are a different story, but I mean, you would think that this would be easy, right? I had another problem with the screwdrivers, so you're gonna see a lot of cutting here because I tried so hard with so many different screwdrivers. Every single screwdriver I had that my dad had given me from the previous controller, I tried to use, and I tried to use it to open up this shell. I was unable to do so. I got a lot of the screws off, and this is really bad to admit, but I actually ripped the shell off. I was so upset and pissed off at that point that I just ripped off the shell, and as a result, I don't have a replacement if I ever want to take off my Animal Crossing print, which I don't think I will because I busted my ass to put this thing on there. So yeah. There was a moment, and I'm gonna put a picture on screen right now, where my screw was so stripped that you couldn't even see the shape of it. That was after my dad buying me a replaceable screwdriver head, and so I actually had to give it to him, and he used a flathead, and he shoved the flathead in there and twisted really hard, and that actually did the trick. And I cannot believe that worked, because we were one step away from having to drill a hole in this tiny little screw, and that's like dangerous to begin with, because when screws are this small, like getting and extracting that screw out of there, oh my god, it sounds like such a headache. Anyways, we're on the final part of this video, which is putting that Animal Crossing, that beautiful Animal Crossing shell on the back of my Nintendo. I literally have chills as I'm saying this. Like, this was such a process, but I loved doing it. Would I ever do it again? Now that I have the right tools and like know the right tools to use, I think I'd probably do it again, but not for quite some time, because seriously this took a lot out of me, and I'm glad I didn't do it all in one sitting, because I feel like I would really not want to do it again. So I'm glad I split it up. But even when I split it up, I was kind of discouraged after the first 2 sessions, because I was like, damn, like, will I ever get this thing done? Will it be sitting on my desk for months? This far in, I'm just screwing everything in now. I'm putting the kickstand on there, and I was actually kind of confused how the kickstand works. So when you go to screw it in, you can't screw the kickstand all the way. It has to have like a little slack in there, because obviously it folds in and then folds back out. So like if you tighten it too much, that mechanism won't work. So at first I think I tightened it too much, and then it wasn't like going down. And another problem I had with the kickstand was that there was no in between for it. So it'd either be all the way out or folded back in completely. And obviously just loosening up that screw did the trick. Here's me testing out if it all works or not with the shell. Oh my god, this was such a good moment to like see that this worked and everything. And what I cut out was, I think something happened with my SSD card reader and it wasn't laying flat on the board. So I cut that out, and the SD card reader actually ended up getting bent a little bit, and my SD card inside snapped in half. Unfortunate, but I reseated the SD card reader and that seemed to do the trick. It seemed to work fine after that. However, of course, we lost our SD card today, so that's quite sad. So thank you all so much for watching. If you stuck around this long, I'm sure that some of you probably watched it as like a podcast in the background. If you want more Animal Crossing content, which I will surely be doing once Animal Crossing New Horizons comes out, and I'll also be vlogging the Nintendo World New York City launch party for Animal Crossing New Horizons, and make sure to subscribe. Thank you so much all for watching. I know this is a long video, but it was a pretty fun video to film and give a little voiceover to. Thanks everyone, and peace out.